Well, good evening, good people. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Hope everybody's having a great day. We've got some interesting news here. Shout out to Michael Anthony Fitness Reaction, who says Diggs looks like he's not going to be ready to start the season, which is really no surprise. Understanding that he was getting the surgery of last resort, which is the microfracture surgery, where basically they cut a groove into your bone and basically take cartilage, and they end up grinding it up and making it into a paste. They harvest this from your body, and they fill it in hopes that the cartilage will regrow. Now, we've seen a lot of workout videos and things with him and hope that he'll be able to recover at some point, but this definitely confirms that the Cowboys have another need, at least as insurance policy, to start the season at cornerback. So we have that, which will be added into the needs for us for the draft. Interesting take. I heard a little bit of this morning, and I'm getting a little bit more now about Joe Milton. You know, we've heard this morning, I was using Michael Irvin's tape, who said, don't give Joe Milton a chance. And we're hearing that Joe Milton basically is saying he doesn't view himself as a backup, and he wanted to go to Dallas because he viewed it as an opportunity. Let's go to the tape here. This is getting interesting.
Since you have been doing work for the Patriots, and I'm sure you're paying close attention to them since you played there for over a decade, what do you think about the Joe Milton trade?
So I thought it was interesting because I did hear from a lot of people, like last year, Joe Milton always felt like he needed an opportunity to prove he was a starter. Like, he never saw himself as a backup. Now, I don't know if that became more apparent as the offseason kind of came along, but I also thought that it was a little I thought people were overreaching when at some points they were like, they should trade Joe Milton for a third rounder, or they should go get like a mid-tier receiver for Joe Milton.
Good luck.
Where I was just like, he played in a few preseason games, one game at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And they think like he's going to bump up like 3 rounds from the year before where he got drafted. So I thought they kind of saw it as, hey, we already brought in another backup quarterback. We probably feel good about him. Let's get something instead of having a guy sit here and be disgruntled all year. I was a little surprised that it happened maybe before the draft like it did, but it kind of felt like he was always going to be traded at some point, just the way it worked out. And I think they liked him overall, some of the people in the building, so I think they wanted to give him an opportunity. If he felt like, hey, I want to be elsewhere, they wanted to give him that opportunity to go somewhere else and prove he can play.
There was a report from over the weekend, Mike Reese of ESPN.com, and it was couched in a positive way, but he reported that the timing wasn't a coincidence, that they wanted to do this before the start of the offseason program because Mike Vrabel, head coach of the team now, is intent on building the chemistry and the team the right way. And that underscores this idea that there was something going on there. And did you ever get the impression that there was a concern that others in the locker room might agree with Joe Milton, or was he just lone wolf in his belief that he should have been the guy?
I got the feeling that it was a little bit of a lone wolf, but everyone in that building felt he had the skill set to be a guy in the NFL. I think the same thing a lot of people thought about him coming out, as far as arm strength, all of the abilities that he had, but it just hadn't come together yet. And I think overall in that building, Drake May, when he started playing, the belief in Drake May went through the roof as soon as he took over. And you remember they played a game in Buffalo where they had a shot to win. Like, they had moments where I think people fully bought into Drake May. I think people still like Joe Milton, but I just think Drake May and the feeling about him overall being the third pick, his energy and attitude, I think there's a different kind of feeling up there in New England around him that just I don't want to say it can. No, I don't think many people were comparing Joe Milton, Drake May. I just think people liked Joe Milton, but never really saw him in the way that they saw Drake May.
So, and the reality from...
So, wait a minute. Let me see if I get this straight. So, they didn't think that he was going to be able to beat out Drake May, but we now think that he can beat out Dak Prescott? Is that what they're saying? Okay.
Outsiders' perspectives, the fans who haven't had a lot of reasons in the past couple of years to show up and freeze their butts off at the stadium and stand in the rain and spend all their money. If Drake May struggles at all in 2025 and Joe Milton's there, you're going to have some people say, hey, Joe Milton looked good in that one game. You know, that one game that we won, we didn't want to win, that cost us the first overall pick in the draft. Maybe he should play. He becomes most popular guy in town. It starts to snowball, and Drake May mentally starts to maybe squeeze the ball a little tighter, think a little too much, try not to make a mistake, knowing that that noise is only going to get louder. So I think maybe they saw that there was the potential there to undermine May. So let's just make this move and let's be done with it. And I don't know, is it an upgrade? They gave up a 6 last year to get him. They got a 5, but they gave up a 7. I don't know. Maybe it's a wash. I don't know.
It's like a wash.
But yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's not a bust. It's not a wasted pick, and they do have a 5 this year to show for it, and they move on. I think they probably would have preferred to be able to keep him a little bit longer. I don't think they would have drafted him last year with this idea we're going to flip him for a 5. Hey, let's use this 6 because maybe we can flip this guy for a 5 if we have to attach a 7 to him. I don't think that was the plan, but they made the best decision they could out of a circumstance that wasn't ideal. I guess that's my bottom line for it.
Yeah, and I think what you started with and said, Vrabel and trying to build a culture, I think that went a longer way than anything, because you don't want a quarterback room with all new coaches in the quarterback room and something that's kind of from last year with the previous regime of this energy coming in where, you have Joe Milton in there, and Joe, I got to do the production meeting one last year for the preseason games. He's a big guy, but it's a chain. It's a big smile. Like, he's a very, high energy, good guy in the locker room. Like, you can tell people gravitate around him. And I think it's the same thing for Drake May. So I think they just said, you know what, let's get ahead of this where we're not turning this into something. Because you remember last year when those guys both got there, it was the clips online with, Joe Milton throwing the ball and it looks like a missile, and Drake May throwing it. And it was just like, look how strong his arm is. So I think they were like, you know what, let's just get ahead of this. Let's get this out of our building totally. Get this guy somewhere else to go, and we're going to go fully in on Drake May and take away any doubts, because last year there were some rumblings when the draft happened that this was a kind of backup plan, the RG3 Kirk Cousins type of thing that we saw years ago. Like, it just felt a little bit like that. So I think it was a good job by them of saying, you know what, we don't want to deal with this, any type of rumblings, and just move on.
Last question on this topic. At the risk of getting in any further trouble than I might already be in, because we've yet to get to the things we're supposed to get to, but do you think the Patriots resisted any opportunity to trade Joe Milton to a team they might see more frequently and that they might compete with more directly? They got him out of the conference, not just out of the division, but out of the conference. Do you think they resisted any chance to trade him to an AFC team?
I would assume yes. I mean, listen, the guy has a boatload of talent, and we saw some plays in that Buffalo game, and I'm a little bit under the mentality that Buffalo game was more of a preseason game than a regular season game, because who was playing on both sides, Buffalo and New England. But you can't take away when you see him in person, physically, just his statue and everything, and then you watch him throw a ball, you watch him run around a little bit, you have to, in the back of your mind, say, if everything starts clicking for this guy who's a young player, like, he could be really good. He can be dangerous. So like you said earlier too, I think they wanted to keep him. They wanted to see what he can turn into, i.e. kind of Jimmy Garoppolo develops behind Brady, gets an opportunity to play, and then you trade him. I think they got a second-round pick when we traded Jimmy when I was there. So
Okay, so I'm trying to understand this. Okay, quarterback is the hardest position to find. Okay, just humor me for a second. Quarterback is the hardest position to find, and if you believe that he is that good and would push your quarterback and people would call for him, why would you want to get rid of him? I want to have hey, I want to know if my number one stops and, gets hurt or can't play. I'd like to know that I'd have somebody behind him that can play and fill in the seams. I mean, we saw how important it was when Cooper Rush came in relief of Dak and won 4 out of 5 games for us and helped us to get into the playoffs. To say that we don't want to keep a guy because he might be a challenge for my starting quarterback sounds insane to me, because if he can, if he's good enough to challenge Drake May, then you should be able to hold on to him and, like the Cowboys did with Steve Walsh, get more from him. This is insanity, if you ask me. But hey, what do I know? I'm a guy in my basement, not my mama's basement, but I am in a basement, and just don't know. All righty, good people. Joe Milton's coming for Dak Prescott's job. As always, I appreciate you. Peace out.